So this is basically sort of the release preview for Stronghold 2 unofficial patch version 0.6.0. We're going to start with the maybe not less exciting, but not as transformative, I guess. We're going to start small, let's say. So historically, when you've put down a siege camp and you use J, it would immediately jump to the siege camp, and then you can recruit it. So very much like say a barracks. So if you press B, it opens the barracks menu, but it doesn't take you to it. So previously what the siege camp did, it would just immediately jump to the siege camp. Now, supposedly, according to the manual, it's supposed to cycle through different siege camps. So if I have 2 siege camps, it's supposed to jump between the 2 of them as I press J. That doesn't actually work with Stronghold 2. So I don't know if that ever worked. But it certainly doesn't work anymore. So what did we decide to change? We decided to just, if I press J, it opens the menu. So it doesn't immediately take me to it. So now it works in the same way the barracks does, or the mercenary post does. I have to press, and then if I press again while the menu is open, it'll take me to the siege camp. So now if I press siege, I can now just recruit as normal. But if I double click, of course, it'll take me to it. Cool. That's nice and simple. Something requested by, I believe his name was Sicilian Customer, was shift-click recruiting. So, let's say normally if you want to recruit fast, you just have to click fast. There was no real way, you basically just have to go like this. There's no real way of recruiting very, very quickly, other than maybe using an auto-clicker. But what you can do now is, if I recruit from any menu and hold shift and click, it recruits all 14 right away. Now this is configurable. I set it to 30, so it tries to recruit up to 30 units. Of course, it is bounded by the number of peasants you have. So if you have less peasants than that, it just stops. This just lets you recruit very fast without having to think about it as much. You're able to quickly recruit, move on to whatever you're doing. Now, for maybe the more exciting stuff, we'll come on to the auto market. So the auto market is very similar to how it works in, say, Stronghold Legends, except there's no... I don't actually remember what those things are called, where you basically drag until you find the right number. These are simple. You can click into any one of these, or you can use arrow keys, for example, if you want to navigate fairly fast. And min, max basically indicate whether it buys or sells. So if it falls below the minimum, it will buy up to the minimum. These are quite exact. So normally, for example, let's say I have, I'm going to sell all my wood, for example. If I buy 5 wood, I have to buy 5 wood. Or if I hold shift, I have to buy 20 wood. You can be quite precise. So if I put a minimum of 1 wood, it buys exactly 1 wood. And well, sadly, there's nothing that costs 1 wood. So let's go to 20 wood. Oop. Not what I meant to do. Accidentally wasted all my wood, all my money there on wood, as you can see. So yeah, just sold below, and now I'm back to 20. So now, every time...
Wood needed, me lord. Well, if we only had more wood.
So every time I throw it down, it buys again, with a short delay. Same thing with the minimum. So, if we look at, say, my granary, right now I've got a lot of... bread, and a lot of bread coming in. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and cap my bread at 5. So it's just going to keep rising because it's just selling constantly. I had a lot of bread, and it is coming in quite quick. So it doesn't sell it all right away. There's a little bit of a cap before it tries to sell again. But it's coming in quite quick. So let's say I wanted to make some knights, for example. In a game's intense. You don't have time to think about it too much. You can just put, so you can find armor, put a minimum of 5. I meant 5. Oh no, I spent all my money in. There we go. Good. It didn't go through. And 5 on swords.
Weapons needed.
Well, that's the thing. You need an armory. So currently, of course, I start with that much. But it'll keep buying up to it.
Recruits needed, sire.
So as you can see, it's constantly buying extra swords. And it'll buy armor when it falls down to that limit.
Needed, sire.
Another thing to sort of mention is these presets. So basically made it configurable, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. Basically, what these presets do is you can define them in the config. There's no other way to define them. They are in order that you put them in the config, which I'll show soon. They will set everything to 0 and then just apply the numbers you have for each preset. So, for example, let's go late game. So if I apply this, so what I'm expecting, actually let's go war. So what I'm expecting, I'm going to see, say, cloth to go, I think 3, candles 3, ale 3, and all the other stuff's going to basically be the same. So yeah, you can see there, sell if you go above 10 bread, buy 200 wood, because you kind of always want wood, candles, ale, cloth, and then it buys swords and armor. And then yeah, I can still make changes to this, so if I want to make any changes, I can still make amendments so I won't get rid of it until I click apply on a different thing, for example. Now, because we did add some minor things to the configuration, some people do find it quite confusing on how you deal with the configuration. And sort of set it up, because some keys don't exist necessarily on some keyboards. This was an issue for one of our testers who has a German keyboard compared to my own. So we've added this. Rather than having to figure out how you do it via the text, you can just hold Control-Shift-O. And now you get these little patch settings. So if you click into any one of these, you can basically override. So this key here is my top left, so it's next to my number 1 key. But if I click it, I can click any other button. So semicolon, backtick, I'm going back to my original. You can also remove these. So if you click X here, for example, it'll put none. This in effect disables the feature. So if you don't like the feature, attack move toggle or stop troops, you can do that too. So this will save to your little INI file. And with that, let's go into the configuration. Alright, so we're into the configuration here. I've removed all of my sort of presets just to not confuse things, because I do want to show how you can add more. For first things first, I guess I can't talk about these if you do prefer to do it in here rather than in game. Don't necessarily see why you might want to. Something that's currently not configurable in game, so currently it is just the sort of keys, because this here is kind of a set and ignore forever. The zoom multiplier and all that stuff. Here's the auto marking panel. So you can use specific keys if you don't want to put it in here. So you can, for example, put O or mouse button 4 or what have you. But some keys don't really have that. So in this case, my little backtick is the symbol here. The recruitment. So here's the recruit shift multiplier. So you can configure it. So let's say to 5. So if you only want to recruit 5 units at a time when you hold shift, that's what you can do. I just put to 30 because you can only really reach, I believe it's 22 peasants maximum free with a, normally speaking. I just put 30s because I want if I'm holding shift, I typically want to use my entire manpower pool for whatever I'm recruiting 99% of the time, except maybe knights because they're more expensive. You can ignore these two, but here we come to the presets. So presets are relatively simple. So it still follows sort of the min-max approach. So here, this would load in with a preset of fastest state. But if I wanted to add another one, I want, say, let's say bread, eco. Then you can set it to max 5. And we'll just get rid of everything else. You can add whatever you want in here, really, so long as it's in the market panel. So this will sell anything that goes over 5. Let's say I want sort of mix and match. I want to sell if I go over a certain amount of flour for whatever reason, but I always want to have a minimum amount of flour. So you could have like flour min 2, max, I don't know, 200. So let's say, so if I go over 200 flour, then sell. If I go below 2, then yeah, buy. So you can do stuff like this, and then cloth, you always want cloth if you're doing dances, so you want to say min 3, for example, etc. And then you can just keep adding these. So these will show up in order of they are in this list, effectively. But yes, I think that covers everything for the configuration.